Between sentences I drift, eager to carve my words by the candlelight of imagination, bending pliant text into imperial prose of ideas that pose upon the summit of my mind, sheltering nostalgic stories from the deep blue nights of history and its sonorous grind. Between sentences of fading memories, embracing the placid crystal of the Caribbean Sea, whose passions soar mysteriously, without warning, in wind driven torrents from season to season, from shore to shore, foaming from the ocean's door, brown from the destructive river core of angry, hungry floods. Between sentences, I pause. I pause where Sikie and Tutwell pry their pensive melody from mango and gloricedia blossoms, from the cool distances of hills and lusty mountain slopes to the green forest shelter where Manikou and Tetchie climb and slither in the cacophony of wild, forgotten fences and wavering hopes. Between sentences, I see them soaring like psalms, scurrying up coconut palms, dithering on the black suns of volcanic torment, dodging fretting currents. Between sentences, between sentences, I see these things rising from the laborious text of patriotic pulses and persistent voices, dreadful of a sometimes fading hope, but standing strong in enduring clashes and fearless dashes from the long guns of tin soldiers with grotesque masks covering their frail tenacity, shooting with frivolity from the flats of Salisbury and from government rooftops and shooting heartlessly between sentences. So, between sentences, I write these poems. I garner these experiences where metaphor gives birth to pain and to pleasure, to hope and to despair, to charm and candor. In this enduring strife, the story of my life best seen transmuted between these sentences.
Arundel Thomas between
My gosh.
these sentences. Guys, welcome to the program on Earth where we look at literary art, we look at visual arts, we look at writing, we look at drama, and a variety of different subjects. Um, what has happened, guys? And anyone can take it on. What has happened? Gerald, let's start with Gerald Natush. What has happened as a former president of the guild? What has happened between those sentences?
Good evening. Good evening. Good evening, all.
Yeah, good evening.
Um, Sir Arundel Thomas, thank you. That poem is Arundel in the studio. Is he in with
No,
you?
that's why he sent this stuff, but he's listening, I'm sure.
Arundel, thank you very much. As a young president of the Writers Guild during my time, Arundel Thomas, Dr. K. Polidor, these were some of the big supporters behind the scene who were encouraging me when they met me on the road. Arundel is a colleague of my mom who trained teachers at the Teachers College. I believe he's retired now, but as a young man, Arundel saw me and came to me and mentored in his own way by encouraging whenever he said, Gerald, keep up the good work. I know it's hard. Keep doing what you're doing. That's it, Ian, what has happened between sentences. I can also call out Dr. Rachel Andrew, who used to be on Kyrie with us. She's a medical doctor now, but we did what I say in my essay, helping school children to build up their essays with the support of the Writers Guild. The Ghost, Kelly, another teacher who was there just like you, Ian, from the Calypso perspective, writers coming in from that angle, helping Calypsonians better their craft, having this discussion about the lyric. What happened in between the sentences? We, as the Writers Guild, had all of this extra support around us. Even people like Paulie Patilo, who is, I think, based in Dominica now. And, the support we got from all of these other people on the outside.
Yeah, we had Pisco and Mills also.
We had Pisco and Mills, exactly. So I think we championed the whole thing. And I say that humbly, having come into the process, looking at seniors like you and Geno at the SMA and coming into the whole writing scene, Rasmo doing his thing, coming around the front lines, Peter Piper, oh my goodness. I mean, he was so prolific. It's like every week, every day Peter had a new poem. We all know that, walking with his scrapbook around Rosso, so that energy, I think it's an ecosystem, if I can use that term that is so abused in computer tech, but we had a literary ecosystem, and not just the literary, color, visual arts. Earl Etienne, who was one of our painters, rest his soul,
Yeah.
visual arts. But these people were part of our energy. The whole calypso vibe and the calypso scene, all of these people came in as part of our energy. We were writers, we were poets, we were creatives. Christabel Laron and her obsession with Jean Reeves, which was healthy, because I think of all the studies and all the reading I did of Jean Reeves, I learned more about Jean Reeves from her. And that's
Yeah.
what we brought. That's what we brought. I think that individual energy, and then Carla came in, and Carla shared so much about the visual arts. Most of what I learned about paintings and visual arts, all these magazines and catalogs that she had of the greats, Van Gogh and all of these guys, and even sculptures, Leonardo and all those works. I picked that up by being in her gallery, by going through her books, her magazines, her notes, and watching what was going on. I think that is the ecosystem I speak of. It was more than just us, the writers. It was so much more coming together and building. And I'll say one thing that has been on my mind coming into that program: legacy. I'll just use that's one word, and I'm going to end by saying, when I came into the Writers Guild, for me, when I learned that we had a Dominican, Ralph Kazemi, who was an ambassador for what's his name, the Jamaican,
Gaviite. Yes, the
Dominic
Gaviite. Yes.
contributed to Gavi's work. That was the holy grail for me. I mean, and then what I see now, when you say what has happened between the sentences, we seem to be everyone for themselves now. Everyone is a champion. Everyone is great. And that legacy, I am not as great and has not come close to being as great as Ralph Kazemi. I looked to that man. I looked at that legacy. You, Ian, Jeno came before me. That legacy, Rasmo on his drums, P.O., 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 Po. I tell my mother that though. That's Rasmo. I remember that performance in Venus Guest House,
Yes, yes,
the
yes.
Gin Reed House. I copied one of Rasmo's lines in one of my poems, and it's a simple one that answers that question. All of them drums just are rolled
Roll
into
into one.
one
Yes.
rhythm, and that's it. That was
Yes,
us.
yes, yes, yes. Well, thank you, Jared. A wonderful introduction there, and you can hear it from a writer. Only a writer could say it like you. Basically, Rasmo, in your day, you introduced Dominica, yourself, and Gregory Roberts to some extent with the drums and the music as part of poetry. Before, we learned poetry at school as a very formal thing, very stiff, very British-like, from Shakespeare and stuff and so on. That's how I started poetry. Basically, I was taught at school doing that. But when the drums and the music came in, you added a new dimension to that sort of poetry. We listened to people like Mikey Smith and Muta Baruka and those persons in those days, and we learned from you. And you brought a new approach, a welcome approach. Tell us about that between your sentences.
Okay. Well, by coincidence, my mother was a teacher, so she had a child out of wedlock, and she was kicked out of the teaching service. So I had a private teacher at home because she was out of the service, and so she decided to teach me, right? And so that's how I learned to write, right? She taught me to write, so growing up, she was close to Mrs. Alfrey. Mrs. Alfrey, Phyllis Alfrey, is the founder of the Dominican Labour Party, one of the founders, right? With E.O. Libla. But she ran a newspaper called The Star. So she used to put stories in there. And by a stroke of luck and exposure to her, one of my poems got printed in the Star newspaper, and so, the first time I saw my work in print, it was just a beautiful experience, and so it was Black Power time to me. So I was in protest mode, and I made some mistakes. I didn't want to do Spanish. I wanted to do Swahili. And I was young, so I couldn't make the connection as to why Spanish was equally or more important to me at that age. I said, I didn't care about Cape Pulido and those people teaching Spanish. I wanted to do Swahili. But I've grown and I've learned a whole lot since then. But mainly, in literature, right? I did was it 12th Night? And I did Arthur Miller and that type of stuff, right? For GC and so. Um, and so we talk about Shakespeare and rhythm and all that stuff. And I'm
Mhm.
saying, when it comes to rhythm, I'm a drummer. I'm gonna write to the rhythms I know, and
Yeah, yeah.
that's our thing, that's our folk rhythm, right? And calypso. So I began writing and chanting to the rhythms, and that was
Mhm.
for me, it was protesting, traditional stuff. I didn't know classical music. I did some piano lessons for a short while at Christian, but not enough, to master it like
Mhm.
I did the
Mhm.
drums. And so I began writing in calypso rhythm,
Mhm.
and I did, and it's one of my passions, man, drumming. So
Yeah,
I got
man.
lessons I learned from some of the best in the whole region, and by again, just staying with what I like, sticking with it, being open to learn, I learned a whole lot. I worked in theater in 6 islands, doing popular theater and training trainers and training teachers and students and youth workers. Um, so um,
You also did work with
it's
some
taken me.
delinquent youths in America. At one time, you were
Oh
speaking
man.
about that. You're going to the various, you know, jails and so on, and we had some youth
Oh yeah,
delinquents.
man. I
Yeah.
I I I got this job. I got this job. I was working with an organization called Move Men Overcoming Violence, and
Yeah.
he had like 30 something therapists, and counselors on staff. So I'm among these people, right,
Mhm.
who have their masters, and I'm going into jail with kids who have problems. Some of them were batterers themselves to their sisters, their mothers, their girlfriends. And so I thought, man, when I went in there, like in my orientation, I did a couple weeks before I really began to teach myself. And then I realized it's like going to a foreign country and not speaking the language. So going into jail and doing the arts and trying to use drums and rhythm. And so when I went back home, I bought every Biggie Smalls and Tupac album I could buy because I wanted an orientation into hip
Right.
hop. And so I began to write, and it had good success among the institutions I work with and with the students. And so, yeah,
Yeah.
um,
So poetry itself became therapy for what you do, and you still continue doing that, Rasma. I might add to general public that they know that you are still involved basically in what you're doing, and you'll talk about some of your albums, and we'll give you a chance also in this program to share one or two pieces of your work. Carla,
yeah,
well, Carla has been a real inspiration, and a rock in the days of poetry because without Carla, we would not have use and access to the Caribbean, which became a home for our poetry and our presentations and getting together, our gatherings and so on. And we have to talk about, in the same light we speak about Caribbean, we have to talk about Frontline and also the guys at MCA, with Gregory Roberts and so on. All this were inspiration for us. And as Gerald mentioned that it was more or less like an institution. Poetry was an institution, and there were persons involved, and we were really active. We had performance at the Arc House of Culture. I don't know if you remember the days when we used to block the road in front of Frontline, of course, with
Yep.
permission from the police, of course, and have performances there. And Ras Algie and these guys, beating the drums and we chanting stuff. It was such a wonderful experience. Carla, tell us, try and recall some of those experiences. And you're a visual artist, but you were heavily involved in poetry and making things accessible to us in those times. And you also did your work in poetry and short story.
Yes, thank you guys. Thank you for having me on here. I mean, when I hear Jared and Rasmus talk and you, Ian, I really, you always say about, oh, what I did. But to be honest with you, I was just grabbing your coattails and I was just having the ride of my life. Because I mean, I had approached my grandmother, I know that she was not, actually, before she was not well, I had approached her after I came back from England on a little stint. I was in England for a few months. And I had gone to this place called Cafe Casbar. I don't even know if it still exists. And it was just so alive, and there was art everywhere, and there was a band, and there was poetry. I think I can't remember what it was, but I just wanted to do that in Dominica. So I had asked her, could I sort of buy her place off of her business, so I could run it for her. And she sort of gave me a hard time. She said, I'm not her only grandchild. Why I want to be so greedy? Or she has to leave her business for other people. But anyway, when she got ill, she called me, and she said, Carla, were you really serious now? If you want, you can buy the business and I'll rent the property. And then when I die, my children will let you have rent it, I'm sure. That's what she said.
And
So
that person
that's
is
what I
Miss
did,
Iris
and
Dangaben. It was Miss
was that?
Iris Dangaben. Miss Iris Dangaben.
That's
Gallery of
right.
Persons.
Iris Joseph, she was her maiden name was Dangleben. And the reason I
Okay.
called the gallery the Iris Dangleben Galleries because at the back we had the gallery and my studio. This is where Jared was going and interfering with all my private business.
Yep. And lying in your hammock. Yep.
But it was always open, the studio was open to people to come in there and just feel the vibration of the inspiration, And then we had a little cafe with the gallery. But the thing is that my grandmother was known for at that space that used to be her living room before her husband had passed, and so she used to have plays, and Orvin Bull used to tell me all about that, the things that they used to do there. So it was always a hub of creativity, and performance. And then my grand aunt, she always collected art. She lived in Barbados for many years, since the early 60s, and had a craft shop, and she collected a lot of the best Barbadian artists. So that was why I put the names Iris and Dangleben, so that I would represent both sisters in that space, and invite their energy. So I have to give credit where credit is due, because I was exposed to that. And then growing up at Anchorage as well, I mean, it has nothing to do with me, but my parents will always have performers there, so I mean, everybody, the first place they played, Exile Ward, Ophelia, Michael, just everybody had worked there, had played there when they first started to get professionals. So I was always into that vibe. But then when I came to Caribana, and I think Rasmo came first, I think Rasmo, you came by me first, and Siri. And they were saying, but look, we could use it here to do the poetry. And then you're roped in, Gerald. I can't remember the whole sequence, but then I was just like, yeah, sure, I am. And then they started to do all this performance, and the drumming with Brass Algie. I used to be on such a high, just holding on to those guys, And then after the performances, Word, Sound, and Power, remember that? We would stay there sometimes until 2 o'clock in the morning,
Yep.
you
Yep.
know. And I mean, I know I'm saying this live on radio, and probably it's a good thing I'm saying it, but I got such a bad reputation. Carla, with all those men in the back of that place, what is she doing? But we were just workshopping our poetry and handing each other papers and working
Yep.
on those things. And it was amazing how much came out of that. And I have to say, although it seems like in between the pages, there hasn't been much, I don't want to lose the track of what happened at Caravan and the Irish Dangleben Gallery, but I know that there is so many people writing now, and Polly is publishing so many people's poetries and short stories and storybooks. We just had a launch one just last month, with Patria Honeychurch, Good Night, My Sweet Island, I think it is, with illustrations by Susan Height. So a lot of stuff we've had. I think a second book just came out with Celia Sorrento. So and I'm just tipping the iceberg there, but there's a lot happening. But I want to stick a pin here to bring in, and I want to throw this to you people, to bring in what's been happening over these eras and the pages where Roseau, you remember, I lived in Roseau. A lot of people lived in Roseau. Roseau was a city, you remember the time of Shape as well, which was after I was overlapping with the Writers Guild and Shape, the formation of Shape in 97. And Shape was a residential city. It's much less so now. It's more of a commercial town, a commercial city. So you find that people hanging out as such in Roseau until all hours of the evening and doing their stuff. I'm not sure that's happening as much and as intensely as it was happening
Yeah.
in those days.
I
And then
remember,
with
Carla.
social media and everything digitally, I think things are going, as we said, people are on their own in their spaces, but reaching out online globally rather than that community vibe. I may be wrong because I'm not full time in Dominica. I may be wrong. And I have a lot to say on what's happening right now with the collaborations between the formation of WA and Vetiver Contemporary Gallery, and with the show that's happening, and with Poly Publishing. So we can go into more what's happening now later, I'm sure. But
Yeah.
I don't think so much that the book closed. I think that in the pages, maybe there's been some digital pages going on as well as the physical pages flapping around in the wind.
Yeah. I remember during that time, Carla, you won the national the poetry competition with something called the lattice worked. That is to emphasize the fact that shape was very much involved in what
Oh
was happening in
yes,
Roseland, ensuring that we remain, a quaint city of this architecture and so on. Shape was very much involved. And I'm not sure this is happening right now in Dominica, as you mentioned. Speaking about publications, in those days it was more self-publications when we did things with the Dominica Printry, right? The
yes.
country. But today, we have international press and all kind of stuff happening. So it's a good time to bring in Helena Dura, who is a published writer, and she could tell us in her time, she did a lot of work on radio and also in terms of the arts as a writer, newspaper, and so forth, and also as a creative writer. And now she's a publisher. Tell us how you have been doing, Helena, with your arts and so on. I know right now you told me when I was speaking to you about you just published a new book and so on. So tell us about how your involvement in those days and what's happening with you now as far as publications are concerned.
Well, firstly, thank you for having me, and I'm so happy to see and hear everybody. I haven't been home in about 10
Plenty years.
years.
Plenty years.
Yeah. Actually, I was down in 2014 for a book launch, and I haven't been back
Okay, back
since.
then, so right.
But I'm working on it. And what I found interesting is that everybody seemed to have started with something happening at Caribana. Because when I started, although from a different perspective, I also went to Caribana, but I had my camera and I had my notebook because
Right.
I worked for the newspaper then.
Yes.
So they would have a show showing up their new photographs, their new whatever, and I would take my pictures and I would write what I saw. I would write the responses from the persons who were in the gallery, and that's how my writing began.
Yeah, so there's more documentation.
Yes.
Journalism.
Yeah, journalism. Journalism. Yes.
So we still had that connection anyway. But after working with all of the newspapers, actually, I went from one to the other, just trying my hand, and eventually started one with two other directors, which was the Sun newspaper. I went over to Montserrat to work with another newspaper, and then I ended up working with the government. But my writing actually began when I was really, really small. I was about 9 years old. You may have heard me say that before. My mom, who couldn't read very well, wanted me to read her a story. So she went to the library, got some discarded books, mathematic books, mind you, and brought it home and told me to read her a story. Now, I mean, you're not going to get a story from a mathematics book. So I created a story. I made a story for her, and every night she wanted a story. Wow. And so one night, she wanted a story she found particularly interesting. She would just love that story. But for the life of me, I couldn't remember a word of it because I had just been making it on the go. So when she gave me a good spanking, because first of all, she said, the fact that I was pretending meant I was lying. And if you can lie, then you can become a murderer and not on her watch. But after that, she got me an exercise book and told me, look, Dudu, when you get those ideas, just write them in a book. And I haven't stopped writing since.
Wow.
I haven't stopped writing since.
Interesting story.
My first book, I named it Antiquate's Short Stories. Anticate came from when I was with the newspaper, the New Chronicle. I had a column.
Stick a pin, Helena.
Yes.
I never knew you were Anticate.
Oh, yeah.
Fell out.
No, I never knew you were Anticate. I mean, I read so much of Anticate. Who's that was Anticate there? Okay,
Yeah.
so you heard it on breaking news, as Carla would say. Breaking news.
Yeah.
Antique is the idea. Yes. Okay.
And so when I had my first book, I thought I would name it Anticate because I wanted to keep this, the connection. So I thought I'd name it Anticate. So I wrote my first book between 9, 12, 15, and I only got it printed when I was 45
Mhm.
because I don't know how to go about it, but I eventually did. And so far, I have published certain books, my last one being the final book in a trilogy that I have completed. That I think is my most ambitious work. And I'm just enjoying promoting it. And I also wrote a book, The Adventures of Moss and Flame, which is actually the story about a fly and a mosquito who became friends, but they're handling societal issues like disobedience to parents, bullying, drinking alcohol, and even loss, death, and how young people can cope with it. And that's where I'm at.
Mhm. Well, the extract you heard me read earlier on today um, came from actually this publication which I did, Spotlight in the Arts. So a lot of what you're seeing there is actually in this book, and I hope to do another publication this year. But we need to remember also that Harold Seeley, who's right here first in studio, was
Hmm.
very much involved. I always call him the hub. No matter all the ups and downs the Writers Guild had in our time, Aaron Seals seems to be always there. He is strategically located at the front line, obviously. And I remember Carla, even with the Caribbean, at times we had a lot of big shows at the Anchorage. I remember some shows we had at the Anchorage Hotel at the time, and Harold Seals was always there and would try and get persons to be involved. When we had shows at the Arc House of Culture, for instance, that's where we bought our tickets at the front line, or just put our books out there and have it on showcase and so on. And Eddie Tula was very accommodating during those times. And Harold himself was a no mean poet, of course. I remember many of his poems, and we have become very close. As a matter of fact, the first time I met Harold Seeley was by accident. Harold Seeley, as you know, a Trinidadian, of course, Trinidad and Dominican, and I took part in a competition, a Caribbean competition, and I won. Yeah, it was Radio Antilles. That's a long time. I won the competition, and I hear this guy come out second, Harold Slee. I never knew the guy. Only to find the same Harold Slee came to Dominica, and I met him. So it was a sort of a mystical meeting of me and Harold Slee. So tell us something about yourself and your involvement in the guild in those days.
Well, good evening to everybody in the diaspora and fellow writers. Pleasure seeing Carla Armour and Miss Catherine Dorset. Brother Asmo and I always connecting, and Gerard always checking him online. I love Gerard. Gerard,
Respect, respect.
enough respect to you too. So in between the lines, it all started at the front line. This is a poster of the front line where we would gather, we would talk, we would formulate. And then from the front line, we would move on to the Caribana. And this is where this is the hub. Here I have a poster of a word song done power, and it's called Grounding. It's a writers group in 1995 paying farewell to Gillian and Sue DeGan.
Yeah.
And to me, that is where the life of everything really and truly, you know, took. But when we realized, but we can do it as good as her, or
Yeah.
even better. We are on par with her. And our poets, our writers, they came out. We had another program, Wood Something Power Moods, featuring Emmanuel Prince, all of the Caribana. And Carla, very accommodative. Every time I would leave Venus and go over, what we doing, who coming, who coming. And we have a list. I can call names like Vincent Roberts, Agatha, Andrew, David Geese, now deceased, Justina John, Terry Henry, Alpha Dennis, Clifton Lewis, deceased, Alma Daru, Mary Parilo, Sonia River, Kramer James, the all funk Solons, much more at Caribana. So, in between, and I'd love to see that the writing, it grew to a certain level, but then like I don't know if it's the technological age or the social age where everything just come online. So everybody just pulling into their own little space, but still doing their thing online. And we had published a book called um, Word Song That Power, yeah, the Writers Guild, and the featured poems. We also have Color Gingerbread. First place independent English poetry independence right in 1966.
Wow.
Amen, Carla.
1996.
Yeah, 1996 she
Yeah,
won.
96 years.
So I found myself over the years just being a sort of custodian of all the scraps of people and all the little poems here and there. It was a nice time. It was a progressive time. We would learn from each other. Ivinia Benjamin was
Yes.
also with us. I introduced her to poetry, and she's now a publisher at Emmanuel Publication.
Yeah, by the way, she's coming on the program a little later to speak to us about publishing. Okay,
And
Ivinia.
yeah, and just to break a little thing, Ivinia will be publishing my book of poems entitled It's So Weird. And you know, I've been working at So Weird since we were youths.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Well, we,
Caribana feel the void, huh?
Yes, yes.
And
very
because
good.
for me, coming from the country to high school in Roseau, right? The cultural groups, you know, that's how I could drum is through Kubuli and People's Action Theater, you know, and then some young people did what we call Aquarian Expression,
Right.
created a theater group,
Mhm.
right? And out of that whole thing, through the National Youth Council, the National Youth Council formed a cultural committee, and that's how the movement for cultural awareness was born, MCA.
Mhm.
So, Caribana created a space for the writers. So those who
Right.
weren't dramatists, you know, and I did the performance poetry in PAT and in the theater group, but Caribana gave me that ease, man, that space.
Mhm, mhm.
And then we had
Feel that
Albert
voice.
Williams.
Yes, Albert Williams.
Albert Williams really one
Ras
of
Albert,
the
yes.
walkers on the pavement in those days to get an ad here, to get something from a store. Albert would walk around, collect, you know, whatever, and put a program together with little or no resources.
Mhm.
We would move in those days.
Mhm.
But
We also
That's
hope
how it was at the time.
Panman should be joining us also. Little later, I hope
Okay.
he gets through. Panman, Bellot. Yes, those were the days. And of course, I hope that you all guys have something prepared because when we come back a little later, you have to share an extract of your work. Just before we go to that, we have, of course, Delroy Williams right here. Of course, Delroy came some years later as a younger one, new generation. It's like this year, you have new generation bouillon. Well, these are the guys, right? So, yeah.
I would like it, you know, to be known and said, all right. Everybody had their part. I was once president of the Writers Guild,
Yes.
and we all did our part. I think one of the best things I ever did as president of the Writers Guild, one day I was presented by the chief cultural officer with a paper. He said, Silly, look, we're going to select 3 people to go away and study literature. Choose them. So, not automatically, yours truly number 1. No. I say, Raymond, look, I want to build up literature and writing in Dominica. Let's choose 3 Dominicans. So, say, well, who? I say, Ian Jackson, Sir Jerome Jenner was winning all competitions, and Jared was up and coming.
That's
Jared had a
sure.
lovely book. You know, Jared poetry was sort of poignant and getting you there. Sparse, precise. I say, Raymond, take them. Those 3 are good. And they went away and they did well. So, unknown to everybody, probably the first time I ever say that. I did that out of selfishness, but out of the growth of literature in Dominica.
Yeah, wonderful.
That's it.
And the choice was basically great. I should say myself because at the time I was teaching, I was involved in teaching, and I tried to impart to the young people. Jenno himself has continued writing, and he will be with us next week in our program together. If I'm Glorious, Scepter Augustus. I think Jenno won the competition, short story competition, the most in Dominica. I think some 10 times. You know, and Delroy is following suit. You know, Delroy a number of times too. Well, four is a lot coming up. You're young still coming up. So yes, Delroy, tell us something about your, you know, how you got involved in poetry and your involvement. You write a lot of short story also, but we deal with poetry tonight. So tell us about your whole involvement.
My love for poetry started in high school at the Dominica Grammar School. I think the high school teachers did a very excellent job in exposing us to poetry. I never did English literature. I did English as a but never English literature.
Right.
Every time during the break, there would be a meeting, and there would be the English literature would have a group meetings, and I would be passing by in the library, in the school library, and then I would hear them and I would hear them reading poetry and so on. I was like, but why can't I be involved in that? And but English literature wasn't
On the
oh no,
curriculum.
it was in the curriculum, but I was in first and second form, and just
Ah.
started at third form. And I was like, boy, I cannot wait, I cannot wait, I cannot wait. And so, but I joined the group when I was in second form, and
Yeah.
then from strength to strength, I started reading a lot in the library. I just spent all my recess break in the library, just reading.
What is your book in those times? The book you used to
Just all,
gravitate to?
all kind of books. All kind of books. It wasn't even really poetry books. I was just reading Hardy Boys.
That was my book.
Yeah.
That was my book. In
All
my
kind of
time.
books. Yeah, I would read. I would take
Yeah,
a
my
Hardy
God.
Boy book and read it in a day and bring it back next day to take the next one.
Yeah.
And so I fell in love with reading and writing at that time. And then I read that poem, The Banana Man. Talking,
Yeah,
on
yeah,
the
yeah.
hand, and I was like,
Taurus
wow.
White Man.
Right, exactly. And then I was like, wow, I can do that. I can write.
Yes.
I never really took it on seriously. And then I read a short story called His Chosen Calling. It was a story about the son of a garbage man,
Mhm.
and he was like looking down on his father for a number of years because he didn't understand what his father was doing, being a garbage man and coming home smelling and everything. And then he was so scornful, and in the end, he himself became a garbage man. So then that story just, and the thing is, there was no indication that he would become that same profession of his father. And so that short story touched me so much that I started to write short story myself. And from there, I started to write poetry. So my first writing was really short stories, but then I gravitated towards poetry through
Okay.
there.
Okay, guys. Good time to take a break. What we have, I just want to tell callers that when you come back after the break, you can give some calls, and of course, we'll be hearing some poetry. We have some poetry from the participants of our program. 449-3095, 449-3096, 449-3097. And of course, those of you who are overseas can call 305-906-4216, 305-906-4216. And you can call us right here on the big station as we unearth some of what we're talking about in terms of our writing and creativity in Dominica.
Yeah.
Okay, we're back and we're here with Unearthed. And this is the program, the third program for the year. It's a new program. It's a welcome change, I understand, from the political discourse that we normally have. In studio with me is the man Harold C. and, of course, Delroy Regis. We also have online Gerald Latros, a former president of the Dominica Writers Guild. We have Raspo, one of our foremost poets, and not just Dominica, one of the Caribbean's most foremost folk and performance poet. And we have also Carla Armor also here. And we're still hoping that Albert Panman Bellot will join us as part of our contingent here as we speak about word, sound, and power, poetry in Dominica. Last week we spoke to Calypsonians, and this week we're doing it with the writers, at least the poets. Next week we'll be looking at the short story writers, of course, and we'll also probably ask Delroy to come in again because he's one of the foremost writers in those times. But we expect General Jacob to be on also on that program and Sceptra Augustus. What we'll do now, guys, is that we just go around and make the wrongs, and you could just ad hocly just share some of your work. And I just want to say something that this year, just before the carnival season opened, I think it was December, and one of my teachers who I work with at SMA with told me, Jacko, I want you to write a song for me. So I asked him, what's it? Do you have a topic? He said, poverty. And I thought that's a very broad topic. And I said, poverty, what do you want to say about poverty? You just write something about poverty. Don't write for a guy who wants to sing calypso. So I told him, well, give me a few days for him to think about the topic. The next day when I returned to school, the guy had a song. He told me he wrote something. And he gave it to me. And it was almost perfect. Rhyme scheme in place and just melody to put to the song. I said, but why you ask me to write a song about poverty when you have equal ability? You could write a song about poverty. He told me the person who wrote it was called AI. This is the problem we are facing today. I guess our creativity is being dwindled. Soon I might be obsolete. So probably you all could think about it and share your opinions about that. But meanwhile, can you make the wrongs and probably share some of your work? Rasmo is a lively guy. And gentlemen and ladies listen, especially young people listen, the word, sound, and power. The word really has power. It's not just the physical aspect of it. It's the spirit of the word. That's why the Bible is the best-selling book in the world, because the power of what is being said, especially when it's accompanied by music and drums as the Psalms. Of course, Raspo told me very early he could not facilitate the music today, which is normally accompanied by his poetry because of some technical issues. And his studio is just trying to rectify some things. But of course, we still have the word. And so, Rasmo, can you share something with us this evening?
You're on mute, Rasmo. You're on mute.
You're mute, Rasmo. You mute. Unmute yourself.
Yeah. Okay.
Right.
Yeah. Sometimes the drums cut out, but it keeps my voice.
Okay.
Yeah. I'm in the middle of reorganizing my studio, so I created a space just for that. So making progress. I hope I can show if I can. But let me see. The drum might cut out. I'm not sure, right? But listen.
Let's try it out.
No, The young people listening out there, I just want to encourage you to be creative, do your own thing. Jaco, I want to correct you. I didn't hear any of the Mutabaruka and all those poets there before I started doing what I was doing.
Wow.
I was just involved in these dance and theater groups,
Yeah.
and I was drumming, and that
Mhm.
was my main art form. But I was writing a lot of short stories, and so I just decided to bring those things together. And
Okay.
then Alwyn came to me and said, Rasmuman, you have to meet Brother Resistance. He's
Yeah,
from
brother.
Trinidad, and he created what you call Rapso,
Yeah.
And for years, I never met him. And then I found out about Oku Onura,
Mhm.
and Muta. So I've been on stages with most of the top performance poets from the Caribbean, right? And I feel that's an accomplishment.
It is. It is. It is. Certainly.
Yeah, and the respect I get from them. So I just want to say, the musicians now, they were like, "What Mr. Thinky doing?" And they're using some kind of words. So it's like I was crazy or something. And
Yeah.
man, and there's one brother, man. I feel Osborne Joseph from Wesley, because we had Harlem Jam City,
Right. That's
a
correct.
lot of us, and we used to have shows, and they had emphasis, right, and those bands there.
And
And man, I used to practice at home, with dub music instrumentals and stuff. So once they gave me a chance with the band, it was like, wow, a very receptive audience. So I just want to encourage young people to experiment and try, and do your own thing. You don't wait to hear it. Follow trends if it's successful for you, but be creative. And just by having learned so many rhythms over the years, I recite poetry to rhythm.
Right.
I feel sorry for someone who can really write and cannot read the poem properly. And it's a craft, right? And all it takes is practice. So you have to give it the time. That's for the young people, not for all the people. No, it's for the youth. Practice. Because I teach up here, and they don't do read aloud in school.
Yeah.
I did that in grammar school. I remember geography. Mr. Levy would have said, Moses, read. And he says, you can be a radio announcer, You read so well. So, things. Then I began to do the Black Power stuff and the African Liberation Day stuff. And I teach young people to do it. So this one is for those who preserve the art of drumming.
Right.
For my ancestors, the singers and players who came before, I dedicate this poem. Freestyle, free flowing, consciously conceptualized into free form, with authentic roots, unorthodox paradox, routinely rebellious rhythms, rhythmic, polyrhythmic, mathematic, unquantized symphony. So let the feelings flow when the blue notes blow. Blow away the tones of restriction, melting and meekly molding inspiration into sweet sounding symphony, raising righteous receptiveness, constant clapping hands, pink hips, smiling lips, drummers drumming out their heartbeat in the heart of every city, at home and abroad. We will rise and organize the movement to centralize the building of the foundation, pushing. Positive, pulsating poetry, inspired by a passion for that which must be fulfilled. It must be fulfilled. Brilliantly brewed and made for initiative. Specialists skillfully merging fusions of yesterday's being with tomorrow's reality, because tomorrow is endless. It will not be lost, but must rise, 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 rise from the dust. For in the magical metamorphosis, the song will continuously be. Are the drums coming through?
Yes. It's coming from.
The song will continuously be. When spirits soar, many fly away home, where we meet and greet our many mighty martyrs, those ancestors we cannot forget, for we are nourished by the echo of the voices that flows in the blood which runs through our veins. For they weep, they weep, they weep in the rains, shedding sundry tears for so many years because of the pressure of oppression. So in the vapor, they rise amidst the morning mist, evading the ever watchful eyes of the system's security, the beast. They rise in the clouds, they move from east to west, with the wind they wander, overcoming every test, writing on the walls of time. They paint murals of vivid graphic graffiti with the colors of the rainbow, that all eyes shall see, that we shall all be free. Free again, free again, free again, like we were in the days of old, of which they said we should not be told. With cultural weapons, mental chains are broken, the liberated vision, the unspoken, in tenor tones and false echo. The solo will follow solo through skills and scales, and the beat goes on and on and on and on. New babes, we are being born. These babes creep, music them face. They walk, they dance, 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 dance. These steps that lead to eternity, for which we will be free. Eternity, 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 eternity.
Yeah, man.
Gracias. Merci
Well,
beaucoup.
well, Rasmo, I'm just saying that I'm in keeping with performance poetry and call and response. Probably should just leave the line when you ask us if we hear any drums.
Yeah.
Are you hear the drums? I will say yeah, and you continue. I was just, just a thought.
Yeah.
Well, I see
I got
Gerald.
1,000 poems about drums.
I know, I
So,
know.
yeah.
And
So,
the drum is
yeah,
really what it all started with the drums in
yeah.
Africa. So,
It's a
yeah.
French drum, and it's deer skin, young deer skin. So it's
Yeah.
not, you don't need the banging like the goat skin that thick and
Yes,
I
yes.
thought it would work, So,
It worked. It worked for us, yeah.
yeah, the ancestors of me.
Yeah. Well,
Thank
Gerald, I saw your
thank
eyes
you.
glued down at something, and I suspect you are ready for us, Gerald. Let's hear your voice.
Ian Carla is going to say the same thing. No, I'm not. I have not nothing here that I have to. Carla is going to say the same thing. The amount of poem that has come out of me through
Yeah.
performances like Rasmo, Harry Seeley. Harry, you're the anchor. I need to say that. You have been the anchor. You were the anchor. I should have said that when I opened. You are the anchor that glued it, at the Arawak, all the different locations. But Rasmo, it go on. And when I close my eyes, Ian, I took Rasmo on, and my brain said onwards, soldiers, survivors of the tradition, onwards, and that was what was happening to us in places like Caribana. Now,
Yes.
I have this backdrop. If you watch my screen, it's the Botanic Gardens, and I deliberately put it up for this event because, again, Rasmo used he brought in Phyllis and Alfrey. Kala used the word community and the different eras. When I spoke of people like Kazimi and I'm so much happened with us in the Botanic Gardens in terms of that voice. When we went there to We went there to rehearse, to practice, to perfect the craft, to bounce off each other. And just hearing Rasmo, words were coming to me. And so many times at Caribana, that happened to me. I wrote poems when I came to read poems. I wrote new poems from other people, that were performing. Legacy was the word I used. Carla said different eras. Rasmo talked about community, and a name came to mind. When I was a little boy going out for independence, in National Day, the day we celebrated all the cultural day of activities. One name, Lawrence Brumant.
Yes.
May say quick.
Quack.
Tim.
Watch this.
The oral tradition. Oral tradition. For me, that's where it started. That's we would stand in that space in the Windsor Park for 2 to 4 hours listening to this man tell court, because we didn't have all the sophistication of all these different
Distractions.
bands and distractions. It was Lawrence Brumand, and in between, Wadi Kole would play some kadas and zouk when he took a break and get his water and something, and then he came back on for another 2 hours. And that inspired. So early on, when I was talking about that ecosystem, all of that is who has replaced Lawrence Brumand in our cultural scene since he passing. I mean, that tradition. Every so often I hear Jocelyn with Kassav when she's saying Tim Wasek, Tim Wasek. When I hear that song, Lawrence Brumand is what comes into my imagination.
It is.
Anyway, I say all of that to just share where all of this comes from. Before I left Dominica, after I left actually.
Gerald, you're not going to escape from us some sharing,
I'm going to share a poem
There are
right
other
now.
people
I'm
to
going to
share,
share
yes,
something that
yes,
just
yes,
came to
yes,
me.
yes.
Because before I left, I scribbled something down. I'm going to share it now. I scribbled something down before I left. It was raw. And I've played with it here, and it's simple. So the words come to me. I was almost going to tell Rasmo to come give me some tam-tam, like,
I know.
the priest said to stop the tampalam, top the tampalam, pampalam, palam, pampalam, palam, pam. That kind
Okay,
of.
Rasmus, do it. Give it to him.
Give me rhythm.
Find something for you. All right.
We might call that a new rhythm, and some people like it, the pampalam rhythm.
Yes. Pueso. So it's fish. We're selling fish. I like that beat. Pueso. Pour faire un bel petit déjeuner. Pueso rouge. Pueso blé. Pueso. Gros pueso. Petit pueso. Caí et maquille au blé. Pueso. Pour faire un bel petit déjeuner. Pueso rouge. Pueso blé. Mais maman, papa, fais attention. Qui pueso zafao kamaché.
Sweet and wonderful.
Show off.
That is a take on the
Wonderful
blue and
guy.
red
Yeah.
the blue and red politics of
Beautiful.
Dominica.
Yeah,
Blue and
yeah.
red politics. Red
Yes.
fish, blue fish. And,
Right.
and
red
both
fish.
fish are beautiful to make a lovely
Yes.
cup.
Yes.
And we fight it
Very,
over.
very
colors and
creative, very creative, very creative.
There you go.
Carla
We're so
has
rouge,
won
we're so
poetry
blue.
competition a couple of times. Gingerbread was one of my favorite, in the days. And there's another one. Which was the other one? There's another popular one you had, Carla. I know for Rasmo, nothing can beat the Caribbean was a melting pot.
Oh, yeah.
That was Rasmo's biggest hit in Dominica in the times,
Man in the region,
In the
that
region,
one is
I
number one.
agree. I agree, yes.
In the region, it was like
Yes, it
number
was,
one in
yes.
Antigua,
Yeah, man.
Yeah.
Big,
Yeah.
big.
I
Yeah.
met with the Barbados Writers Guild in Queen's Park Oval, and Rasmo, yes, that was who they
yeah.
didn't go on. It wasn't Alvin Bully, or it was Rasmo, and because a few of them had performed in popular theater, Caribbean popular theater. They were such an organization, I was told.
Just before Carla reads a little extract from her work, I'm very happy. I'm really elated that we're doing this because we're in that on the hills where we have lost the icon in Dominica for Diana Frampton. And many times we don't talk about persons, We just hear something happen to somebody and then all of a sudden we see how great that person was. But I'm happy that as the younger generation can be exposed to what you all guys did because you all made a significant contribution and still continue to make. You know what I mean? So it's very, very important we embrace our people. And I'm really happy about this program. I feel good about it. I still hoping against hope that Pan Man will peep out somewhere and come in because we spoke. Panama is in Pretoria, man. That's a very
Yep.
interesting place, in
Yep.
South Africa. And I spoke to him at length, even just before the program. I spoke to him again, so I really hope at this he can come and spend like a 5 minutes with us. By now, it's around approaching 12 o'clock right now. In no, it's after one, around one. It's approaching one right now
Two
in South
hours is
Africa. Yeah, it's about 6 hours ahead, I think.
it's
So, Carla,
2 hours ahead of me, and it's approaching
yeah, for
11. It's
Dominica,
just
it's
after
around
11.
6.
So it's 1
Yeah,
o'clock.
right,
for
okay,
you,
right.
just after 1.
So, yes, let's hear from you, Carla, what you have to share with us.
Well, you mentioned about gingerbread, so I
Right?
will
Okay.
do that one for sure.
Wonderful.
I'm
Yeah.
not sure if Rasmo ever drummed for me for gingerbread, though. Did you jump for gingerbread? I think that you
Just
drummed
give me
for a
a
different
feel.
one for me.
Give him a feel. He said, give him a feel. Give him a feel. Just go in and he'll join you. Let him
It
get your
was just
rhythm.
a very
Yeah.
mellow heartbeat. It's just a very mellow heartbeat.
Yeah.
I don't know if it'll work, but we can try. But I did want to point out something, Mr. Jared Latouche. Mr. Jared Latouche introduced me to haiku in the botanical gardens.
Ah,
So just
dear
talking
Lord.
about him being very short and sharp with his poetry. He taught me
Jared
about
has been
haiku. I
like that.
originally thought I was talking
Very
too much or
poignant, very
something.
pointed with his poetry. He has been like that. Yes.
Yes. So I'll do the gingerbread. I mean, if we have time, I can do another one that has more power with the drumming. But you had mentioned this one, and I haven't done it in a long time. So it's talking about our heritage architecture coming from the time of shape, right? When I used to live in Rosa, I used to sit on the veranda and get my inspiration early morning. So it's first person. I am a gingerbread fretwork hanging in leaves over white chipping lattice work veranda railings, hanging over a hardware store, jam-packed with nuts and bolts, lamps with thick cotton canvas wicks and spare glass shades, fish hooks, chicken wire, mosquito mesh, all hanging off the western wall next to an old roll-top desk with stiff drawers and dark, dark, dark hard wood, its intricacies exposed in patterns of lines and circles. Creaking, worn strips unraveling to a stone step to entice me through. Big grey doors are hanging on old iron hinges, with their large bolts holding hurricane shutters in their place. I am perched there in reminiscent of youth and time. A period that fades, a moment when new nails and emulsion arouse me with a heady scent. I hold secrets of the past inhabitants, families, guests, reliving the old, adding new lives, bearing their souls on my empty gallery. With me for company. Curly curves like waves, weaving patterns of symbolic architecture that conjure up an image which adorns me. The fretwork. My beams stretched forward to a fascia of hope that when big fat raindrops splatter over rusting galvanized street with colors of oxide, their metal dissolving beneath sun and stars, once only to be replaced as holes penetrated, cause pieces of me to crack and fall. Paint peeling where once was perfection, hanging with rusted spikes protruding. An element on the verge of extinction. I see it now. I just hang in persistent pride as I exist in the scrutiny of lens shutters and laptop keys. I am home to romantic tales and courtships unraveled, of an era of wise hands that created in wood and caressed with sand this paper, the fading beauty of me, this gingerbread fretwork, hanging.
Wow. And Carla, this is so true, even more true so for Dominica, because that gingerbread lattice work is this quite fast disappearing from Dominica. Rosa is basically changing his face. And basically, I was one of those who did the article. And many people called me about the article I did an article about a house and a mango tree when the Jean Rees area was destroyed for this edifice that we have now,
man.
which was a source of controversy by many persons. We don't seem to have that facade which we once had in Roseland. It's quickly disappearing. So all the courtships and everything is going to disappear, and there's nobody to speak about it. So we're happy
And
to hear that poem. Yes.
I think when we talked about the pages, I talked about the sandpaper, but the paper was also talking about the paper that was creating a record. And all of these things obviously have metaphors for other things. But it's interesting that I did this poem, I think it was in 1995. And that was before the foundation of, so I must have won the competition in 1996.
Yeah.
And then in 97, we founded Shape. And we did so much work with repair and awareness around the importance of the heritage and the vernacular architecture. It's really interesting. I mean, I think a year ago I was sitting at the Alliance Française, and there it was, a young lady, the new president of Shape. They were launching a new book called Still Standing, that she did. Marika Honeychurch did the photography for this book by Dr. Adam Philogen. And it was all about recording the lives. As I was talking about, I hold the secrets of the lives of the people that still live in those houses that are still standing, that he did as a PhD thesis. And here it is, this was a year ago. That was 2002, 2003, and here we are. This was in 95. I was writing this. So it's gone all full circle, and we cannot ignore the part that is played by our heritage and our culture and our surroundings into the art, into our craft, because that is where the inspiration comes from. This is where living it with its short stories is coming from. And it's us creating our art that then wakes up people to pay attention to these things, that then when our visitors come, they see what we are pointing attention to. And it's all full circle with the tourism and the culture and the arts and the industry and the engineers. So every industry sort of links back to the arts and culture. That makes it such a real tangible thing, although sometimes we feel it's the intangible, because the orange economy is what they say is the intangible economy. But its tentacles are right through, And
Well, I don't know how tuned your guys are to Calypso or Calypso right now in Dominica, as Dominicans yourself, but probably that is more lyrics for our Calypso King to add to his nasty business element. But in the meantime, we'll take a short break, and when you come back, we're going to listen to Delroy. We're going to move across to Delroy, Seeley, and I see Miss Dorset here. Helena is looking at her work. I can see it in her eyes that she's doing some reading, saying, which one I should read, which one I should read, which extract I should read. We're going to give you some time to breathe. Come back, we take some calls, and we go on, we continue for reading. Of course, if there are any calls, we just want to remind you of our numbers: 449-3095, 449-3096, 449-3097. If you're overseas and you want to reach us, it's 305-906-4216, 305-906-4216. But sometimes when you do shows like that, people hardly call. They are so immersed in what's happening, and I still appreciate anyway. I know you're listening, of course, but you feel free, call us and talk to us. We have a star-studded guys who have been involved in writing for many, many years, and they currently, and we trust that you'll find the time. We have a call online. Hi, good evening, caller.
Yo,
Yeah, good evening.
explain that word for me. Which song and for? Give me a good explanation.
Well, we don't even have to explain it. You have been hearing it whole night. You have been hearing wood, sound, and power for the whole night. We don't explain poetry. We just give
Well,
it to
you would,
you.
just
And
you would, just you would.
was
You
word?
would.
What you're
So
doing there?
because the
You're
public understand the meaning when you say wood surround powder.
power, not powder.
Yeah, explain it.
Well, word has power. You agree that words have power? Do you agree
Yeah,
that words have power?
true, because one wood can make you drop dead.
But of course, of
And one
course,
could make you back alive.
right? Of course. So here you go. Remember in biblical times that Christ just spoke the word and it happened.
Yeah,
He
man.
said, "Let there be light," and there's light. Isn't that
Yeah,
power?
yeah, come Muku, I just pull in your leg, man.
Oh, you just Muku, Muku, you have me. Okay, yeah, man, yeah, man. So, well,
All
thanks
right,
for calling the program. I was trying to wonder where that was going, but I understand. I understand.
all right, so
Yeah, man,
good
yeah,
night.
man. Well, thanks. So, how are we coming out over there? Are you enjoying what's happening? Reflective? Okay, Muku, we have lost Muku. So, okay. Yes, we are open 449. We said 449 3095, 449 3096, 449 3097. In the meantime, just give us a little pause here and we're going to introduce the man, Delroy Regis, who have won a number of short story competitions, I think around 4 or 5, he said. And also, he has been involved in poetry heavily, placed a few times also in poetry. Delroy.
Yes. Thank you very much, Ian. It's Delroy Williams, not Delroy
Why
Regis.
said Regis?
I
Yes,
don't know.
that's the former. You were in youth too, and he was
Yes,
also in
yes,
youth. That's what
yes,
had me. Yes, yes.
Yeah. So
Williams,
the
yes.
poem I'm doing is called "Man Up." It's a poem that I did for Men's Day of last year.
Yeah.
So man up, man up. Man up, young boy. Man up. Your daddy's gone out there, living in this cold world, loving these young girls. So you now have to play his role. So man up, young boy. Man up. No more childhood games. You have to bear the brunt of your father's shame. Every time your mom is hurt, she will drag you through his dirt because you are a constant reminder that your father walked out of the door, leaving her to raise 3 kids all on her own. And to make it even worse, you have all of your father's characteristics. You are sly with words and full of tricks. You even sound exactly like him when you speak. More than just his reflection in a mirror, you're his spitting image. So she relieves his damage every time she looks at your face. So man up, young boy, man up. No more all out Fridays followed by lazy Saturdays, lingering out late. You've got to go out and earn money to put food on your family's plate. There's no more crying for you. Suck it up and be a man, the one that your daddy couldn't be. It has to be you since it can't be your mother. Anatomically, sorry, and anatomically. You've got to look out for your sisters. Make sure they don't fall prey to the drug dealers and the gangsters, or even worse, fall prey to men like your father who just gave up on his family to chase young skirts who are almost the same age as his children. Now he has left you with the burden, picking up the slack where he dropped it. So man up, young boy, man up. You have to drop out of school and get yourself a job. Now is the time to pull up your pants, tie your waist, and be strong simply because daddy is running from his responsibility and mommy is too busy casting blame and scapegoating. So this young boy, he has to man up, grow a mustache, grow a beard, and face the world, even though he isn't prepared. And all of this frustration, it is so new to him as he tries to be a better man than his father. But every mistake or every misstep serves as a reminder from his mother that he is just like his daddy and only adds fire to the fuel of his failure. So now he simply rolls over from one day to the other, living a man's life while only a child, and he wishes somewhere that his father would be suffering the same pain that was bestowed upon him when daddy left his mother and sisters, forcing this young child to man up. So man up, young boy, man up.
Wow.
Yeah.
Powerful, powerful,
Powerful,
powerful. Man up,
powerful.
powerful. And I wish a lot of young people listen to this one because we live in a world, guys, where young people see, I'm as a teacher, I could tell you they feel entitled. They feel entitled. You have to do everything for them. I mean, sometimes I'm at school and you find parents bringing their books for them, they forget their bag, they don't do their homework. Man up, and man up is a metaphor for so many things, or responsibility in life. And that's a wonderful message. And of course, I mean, I could understand why Delroy wrote this poem because I mean he was also a member of National Youth Council and a president. And so, what inspired you to do this one? Was it a personal experience or family experience or something?
It's a little bit of everything, to be
Everything,
honest.
okay.
My personal experience
Yeah,
and
yeah.
experiences of family members, as well as observations of the fact
Mm-hmm,
that a lot
mm-hmm,
of our
mm-hmm.
young men are growing up being how I'd say it, like you say, lacking
Yes,
responsibility,
yes,
but
yes.
also being forced in situations that they are said they're not
That's
prepared for.
certainly, that's
And
certainly.
I think society has forgotten that our young men are facing some struggles. So they're
Yes,
going to bring that back to the fore. Yeah.
right. And somebody who has manned up already is Harold Seeley.
Yeah, man, a very well written poem and well said. This
I
poem
agree
took
with
me
it.
back to the eras of poets like Darwin Dewey,
Yes, Darwin Dowry.
the radical poets who would say it as it is. We'll
Mm-hmm.
have Billy John Hope,
Yeah,
Rasmo.
yeah,
Those days where poetry would say it as it is.
yes,
They express their feelings
yes. Direct.
direct,
Not much metaphors or similes. Just tell it as it is.
tell it as it is.
Yes.
So
And
tonight,
it brings up an issue
reading
that
from my book, it's
that
entitled
the
So Weird.
issue of just 1 second then, because I don't want to lose the trend of thought on it. I want to thank Delroy for that. Because I mean, look at the difference between the number of inmates at
Mm-hmm.
Dominica State Prison, the prison, in terms of the gender difference. You
Right.
got 2 women
Mm-hmm.
and hundreds of men. You know,
Yeah.
I mean, like, and so it says a lot,
Says
and
a lot. Yes.
it says a lot. It says a lot, which means that because psychologists say that in developed countries they look at the performance of boys in by the time they get to 5th grade, right? And prison cells, prisons are designed and built based on that
Okay.
population.
Wow.
Sad.
So the whole thing of the education, and what you get as a child, what goes in comes out,
Right.
and we have a cycle with this one, man, on male
Yes.
abandonment
Mm-hmm.
of their responsibilities, and that's what it leads to. That kind of
Vicious
population in
cycle.
prison. And when you look at the gender difference, it says
Yeah.
something about our society.
Yep.
And it's Dominicans with you're talking among each other. I know other people saying that, but I mean it's a reality that we need to work on. So I mean, like, I've dedicated the rest of my life to that kind of work.
Well, yeah,
Working
you have
with
been doing that,
men.
Rasp. Yes.
Man
Yeah.
up.
So yeah, and to the poetry, man.
Mhm.
To
Yes,
the
free
poetry.
poetry.
So Delroy, thank you, man.
Yeah.
Welcome, man.
Thank you.
Amen.
Yeah, silly. Let's say
Okay. We haven't mentioned this, brother, but this is the cover of my book, So Weird. This was done by Brother Arnold Tulor. And Arnold has also been an integral part of Caribana, of the writing scene, of art, of you name it, and Arnold has been a part of us and continues
Yeah.
to be. He's now, I wouldn't say
Yeah,
exiled, but
he's
he's
in
in
St.
St.
Lucia.
Lucia.
Yeah, and he was here
Okay.
recently too.
Right.
Yeah.
So my writing took off. A day as a lad in Trinidad, I saw the name Alwyn Bully Caribbean Theatre Exchange. I said, boy, I write in plays, I write in stories. I wonder if it's good. And I sent a letter to Alwyn. And Alwyn wrote me back. And I still have that letter, a handwritten letter of Alwyn. I say, you see that one day I will sell that. Yeah. And Alwyn was so grateful and complimentary and advice given. So I just, say Alwyn was a sort of creative genius. And he also did the forward of this book. It was to be published before he died, but it got lost in the computer somewhere. It was misplaced and some part went in. That was one of my regrets in life. But it also gave me a chance to include a poem I wrote. It's one of the 3 poems I wrote in the last 7 years. I've been exiled in Trinidad. I did one on COVID. I did another poem on Trinidad independence. I call it Après Soixante-Années. That's after 60 years, how Trinidad is. And this other one is called Many Are Called and Few Are Chosen. It's an elegy for Dr. Alwyn Anthony Bully. Now, an elegy is a lyric poem or musical composition that laments the dead. There was a cloud of sadness in the atmosphere A feeling of reflection was everywhere as the nation bowed its head in dignity to a great symbol of humanity. It's also written in colon responses. So the response is all win, all win, all win. All win, all
All win,
win,
all
all win.
win.
Dr. Alwyn Anthony Bully, a creative genius. I knew his name. I was still a lad growing up in Trinidad. So it was his regional fame, far and near, of all he had proclaimed. Now that his earthly contact has ended, his many varied accomplishments are now being revisited with compliments by the many he has guided and mentored. But why wait? Why procrastinate? Why wait till death to say sacrifice? Why wait till it's over to honor genius of a brother? Why wait? Why didn't call Rose up at Girardel to order a bouquet and not a wreath? Why wait? Why wait? In memory of Dr. Alwyn Anthony Woolley, a creative genius.
All win, all win, all win,
Alwyn,
all
Alwyn,
win.
Alwyn, Alwyn.
Yeah. That reminds me of a calypso I wrote. We all win. With all win.
With
Yeah.
Alwyn.
You know,
Yeah.
while you were reading that, Celie, and with your comment there, Ian, we all win. And
Yeah.
Carla, I know for you, I'm looking at you, and I know this is personal. I mean, for Alwyn is family where you're concerned. For me, I develop a personal relationship with. I never mentioned it, but even while I was in England, we used to correspond. I mean, he always said, "You can take the boy out of the Caribbean, but you can't take the Caribbean
Yeah.
out of the boy." Was how he used to look at my constant posting about Dominica and its politics. I mean, my master's degree is international politics, although we came from that literary background. So I have that constant refrain in a lot of my poetry. It's very subtly political. And he was that constant inspiration without having to do much. You know, you all know his painting is on my wall in England. I mean, that was the
Yeah,
level.
yeah.
That was the level of the constant inspiration
Yeah.
that is to all of us, Rasmo included, all of us here. So
Everybody was touched by all win in the arts.
Oh, yeah.
Everybody was touched by
Yeah.
this man.
A humble genius,
Yes,
man. He
humble
never
genius.
had, he wouldn't put you off. He'd always find time to give you an advice.
yes,
Yeah.
But
Always
he
say,
was so his thought and his purpose was so clear, he was unflinching,
Yep.
but I guess he was just such a gentle person. He could really tell you to go to hell, and you thought that he was telling you, I love you. Not that he was telling you, but he would just keep his point, keep his opinion, keep his principle, his integrity, but just so mellow, he was just such a man of excellence. I mean, you
I
should see some of his
Exactly.
drawings while he was just about
Yeah.
2 years old.
the
Drawings that he
time.
did.
We did a play called Run for Your Wife
Oh, yeah.
with Ashwood Simon and myself. A very hilarious comedy. So I was happy to get a small part. Alwyn pulled me aside. He said, Harry, no part is small. We're all part of a puzzle. So all part is significant. No, you don't get a small
Oh,
part.
Yeah,
You
yeah,
know?
yeah.
It's a constant humanity and humility. I'll never forget my first professional engagement with Alwyn. I was still at the SMA, and he was UNESCO's cultural ambassador to the Caribbean.
Right.
And for
Right.
me, as a young Caribbean man, I was so proud that it's a Dominican that was in that. I think he was based in Jamaica at the time.
Yeah,
It
yeah,
was basically,
Jamaica.
But the interesting thing, Alwyn would return to Dominica every carnival. And I'm just a young boy at the SMA in the 80s. And you could go up to Alwyn in the band and talk to him. I mean, that was just remarkable.
Yeah.
He didn't have to know you. He was accessible. You could tell him your interests. I was interested in writing and poetry and Caribbean, this and that. And you could talk to him, and that was just remarkable. And
Well,
that never
there's-
left him. That never left him throughout his life. He was always accessible to anyone who wanted to learn, to share, to understand.
Yeah, there's a foundation set up for him, and next week Gloria Septra Augustus will be talking about. She's part of that foundation. I benefited from Alwyn also. He was the one who had me to go to Jamaica to study reviewing visual arts scholar, and I also had a show in Jamaica, a one-man show, and I was so surprised he attended.
There you go.
That particular show. So that is a gentleman we're talking about. So tell us, this Catherine Dorset, How is that? Is that your pen name or is that Helena Dura? Can you share
And
some with us? Since
Helena Duran was my married name. I have
yeah.
since remarried, so I'm
Dawson.
Helena.
Oh well, man.
I
Yes.
am
Okay.
Dorset,
Yeah.
but I use Catherine for business, and Helena is just my everyday name. But I use
Yeah.
Catherine.
Okay. Okay. I get you. All right. Okay. So let's hear from Catherine Dorset, and let's hear what you have to share from us. Some your last book, your latest book. Is it from your latest book?
No, it's not. It's from
Okay.
a book that I wrote, a book of short stories. I was involved in um a writing group online on Facebook,
Hmm.
weekly writing prompts,
Right.
and every week we got a prompt. It could be a photograph, it could be a sentence, whatever it was, and we had to write a prompt to it. And the way I write, I don't need much. I just need to see something or hear something or just see a line or something, and I don't have to think. It just comes. So I know that's a God given thing. I didn't go to school for it.
Right.
It's just a gift. And so one of our prompts was this picture. I don't know if you can see it.
Okay. Yes. It's like a
Right.
ballet dancer.
So, yeah.
A
Yeah.
ballet dancer.
Right.
And the only instruction was, who is she? Tell me her story. And I wrote this. From her earliest childhood, Gretchen wanted to be a ballerina. Her desire to dance was a fierce fire raging within her. Her parents could not afford ballet classes, so she would go up to the attic and practice every day. She knew that one day she would take center stage with a traveling ballet group. That was her dream, and she lived for that day. As she perfected her craft, her long legs would glide across the her long legs would glide across the floor. Her slender arms would extend upward and behind, capturing a flawless leg as she did her routine in front of the attic window. Finally, it was happening. Gretchen was making her debut with a traveling ballet group from Russia. So she was so excited. As she took the stage, the applause was deafening. Her graceful glide upon the stage caused a ruckus as she performed a solo. The crowd was on its feet, shouting her name. She moved so effortlessly, almost as if she was walking on air. Panting with excitement, Gretchen tried to control her breathing. Her heart was pounding. She was touched by the crowd's response to her performance. Tears ran down her cheeks as she took a bow, while flowers and teddy bears came sailing up onto the stage. She bent and picked up a cute brown teddy bear and a single rose. She had never been so happy in all of her life. The next morning, Gretchen was found dead in her bed. The 60-year-old Gretchen would never again have to look down at her shriveled up legs and wish that she could dance. The vehicular accident, which had paralyzed her from the waist down on the night of her prom 44 years before, had brutally shattered her aspirations, but not her dreams.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yep.
You had me in suspense there.
Yes.
We're quiet.
Yeah,
You
waiting for
briefed
the,
us.
the
You
twist.
briefed us. That's why we're so quiet. I
Yeah,
want
yeah,
more.
yeah.
I want more.
I
I
was like,
want more.
wow.
Yeah, well, I'm really happy having this discourse, because basically, we have found, and I'm sure you know that there's a dearth of reading in Dominica, I guess, in the world, in the Caribbean, and we don't read, we don't write the written word, and the word is slowly losing its power in that respect because we have machines doing it for us now through AI and other devices. We have pictures, we have the internet, we have everything else, and people don't spend time with themselves to craft words and make words mean something. So even though calypsos are suffering, every facet of our life is suffering as a result of people not getting into themselves and creating word pictures so that people can actually gravitate to and change lives and and give solutions to problems and so on. And I remember in the days when we had things like Green Gold as a play, it
Yep.
went around. Even Rasmus poems. People used it as a form of therapy and to pass messages because that was the way we were brought up. And I wish some semblance of that could come back. And that's why I requested that we do this poem. We're unearthing some of the things that used to happen and the power that the word can still have today. And in terms of what we are doing. So I'm really happy that you all guys could join us. I just want to share something also with you all guys because seeing that everybody have been sharing, one or two people are probably saying, well, but Jackson not sharing anything. I would share
Jackson,
something with, yes, go ahead.
Ian, just before I lose the train of thought, like Rasmus said, because I
Yeah,
don't
go
want
ahead.
to kill the energy after your poem. But I think what you're saying there is also important to note that the practice, when you're an artist, they say that you have a practice.
Right.
So the practice of doing your art is actually also a therapy, and I think that this world is so fast paced, everything is so tight and small and quick and easiest way. And the concept of doing the practice and going through the motion of struggling to find that word, that alternative word that will tie up a sentence with less syllables and to make your poem a tighter or draw it out and make somebody hang on the edge of the suspense. So I think people don't need to take the time to do that anymore. So it is such a loss because then it is also part of what's going on with violence and the present population, because even the young men are not given the time to and space to articulate what they feel inside, what's in their minds, to be able to put it out there. And I think that's also a very important aspect of our culture and the arts in Dominica that we need to look at as we move forward in what's happening in Dominica's arts.
Yeah,
How
next
can
week
we
we'll have
recapture that?
Yeah. Next week we'll have Ivinia Benjamin. We're getting a little problem in getting her to join us. And I hope I can also have Panman next week as probably continue those types of discussion or publishing. But as we wind down, before I ask you to say some last words, we'll just listen to something called Is the Pan. Is the Pan. Of course, Pan has died basically in Dominica. And there's something by a gentleman called Ian Jackson.
Who is Ian Jackson?
All you can hear a sweet song from way over those hills. Eh? Listen good. Well, that is the sound of the pan. You see, it's the pan that used to run things in the land. It's the pan on the street that used to make me jam and jam. But you can't hear the pan because you don't feel the pan. Because the pan is now a rubbish can. All you can remember Astocats, huh? And chocolate county, eh? Man, that was mass in the city. When the revelers come from east and west, and Dominica Mass was at its best. Yes, it's the pan. It was the pan that make me prance down Queen Mary Street. It's the pan that make me tramp down non-stop on my feet. Night and day, rain or heat. It was heaven, child, because God was in the pan. Yes, God was in the pan. Masquerade was an easy chip, not a slap in the face or a kung fu kick. Those days it was sensei in full bloom, and thunderbirds round the corner give them full room. With over 500 revelers strong, singing Madu suck it to me, look my water falling down. Yes, it was the pan, was the pride of the land, and there was no confusion, because God was in the pan. Yes, child. But the devil get vexed and take a hammer and untune the pan. And he beat the pan until the pan became useless, cursed instead of blessed. The pan became a machine and the devil put on his own beats on the machine and give it to a man from Antigua. So the man live hell and come down with his flames burning, and he deposit all the ash and the youths then get a scratch. And it's so the problem starts. Somebody put on the machine and the drum beat begin. The devil finally succeed in his plan. Bottle, knife and stone came on the scene as soon as the beat from the drum begin. and try his best to compete. But every year it was more lips. All around the notes used to roam, but they standardize it and they call it chrome. Still the panman today catching his tail because no one decide to stand in bail. But it's only the pan. It's only the pan alone could make things right. It's only the pan that could make we carnival clean and tight. Pan and Lapo is like farin and cocoa. His only pan could give you road march. Cause you know when the tune end and where it start. You see, in Trinidad, all in the school, pan or hi-fi, the pan rule is the sweetest instrument on the entire earth. And it's we in the Caribbean give she birth. Hear that sweet tune, that sweet tune. It must be the chocolate county man. All you listen well, listen well. Is the pan. Yes, man, is the pan.
Beautiful.
Yes, it's
Beautiful.
carnival time, and we really miss the pan. Is the pan. Well, guys, we are approaching that time now when we need to say goodbye. It was really wonderful, having you speak to us and, just reminisce over the good old days. And, I really trust that somebody takes a leaf from that. We have Delroy Williams as a young man himself, very much involved also. Tell us, just give us like what's happening right now with the guild. I know they had formed White Kubuli Writers and so. Can you give us a little information about that?
At present, I'm a member of the Peter Noah, that is another writers group.
Okay.
I think Dominic has a few writers groups,
Yeah.
but we all exist within the online circles, not physically.
Okay.
So I'm a member of Peter Noah that does the Crapo short stories.
Flying Crapo.
Flying Crapo short
Flying
stories,
Crapo,
right?
yeah.
Yes. So I'm a member of that group as well. What I would say is that in terms of the guild, there's no physical guild,
Right.
but there are a few the last executive still exists. I think we really need to remobilize and get ourselves back into, even if it's just an online space, but at least a space that we can share and create awareness for all the writers.
I think we have a last call there before we leave. Yes. Yes, caller. Good evening. Welcome to Unearthed.
What's up, my brother boy? I've been trying to get you boy, Jaco boy, but you always telling me I'm a freak out fella, but I want me to sing calypso. You
Yeah.
understand?
Yeah,
But
man.
when I listen to you all fellas, my brother, that bringing back the culture back in the head.
Yeah.
But there's a problem, because I hear a certain partner talk about where he go and get his little history was in the library. Now
Right.
there is no library at all, though. Your history in itself is a book. CD, my partner, the partner, CD, my partner from front flying to everywhere to Cox Street, to
Yeah.
Galvinas, Nancy, just nice. See that little bike man music,
Hey, my brother,
So,
blessings.
you
Yeah.
don't know we going. So, my brother, we have to portray everything that we have that is good. And when I listen to you all there, the partner that just come out and speak there, just touch me. I wish you could let him see the poem again. Because it's all, when we said it, you question him. But from the time he said it, I say, look at that boy, Mr. Bobby has a little family problem, But listen to me, my brother. People do not like me because you know why they do not like me? My life is I advocate for the children. When I call you radio station, it's about the children.
For the children, yes. I always hear you
so
call
they're
about
asking
children.
me how many children I have. But look at what you all are doing there now, which is very good, is for the children.
Amen,
Yeah.
amen,
Children
amen.
do not want to listen to that anymore.
Yeah.
Because why? There is no library for them to know Jackson is this one is that,
Yeah.
that one is that. There is
Well, my
no
brother, thank you for your point, but we just coming to a close, so we don't want to go overboard, and we expect another guest to come in and another person to take
but
over the
in
program. But
closing, in closing,
Yeah.
my brother, here is Jackson because we always want to say, pan.
Yeah.
It was pan, man. Pan. It was Eddie. Go buy Coca-Cola, you could drink a Coke. Yeah, Eddie pan. Pam, 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 pam.
Okay, well, you're a poet, so get your poem together for next week, okay, and share it first. I just want to tell the
Okay.
listening public that I just forgot to say that, but if you have any poem that you want to dedicate to the memory of Fudayana, please do so and send it to Q95, and we'll share it with the public next week when we have our program. I really want to say that this program is actually dedicated in her memory. Okay, so my brother, thank you very much for sharing with us. And of course, we have Mr. G and his program coming up soon, the Global View on Q. This time we have somebody else. Or we have a repeat of the program of last week.
Ian, how
Oh,
much time
there's a
before
tribute to
closing?
her coming up
We have
soon.
2 minutes before closing.
Yeah. Go ahead, Jared.
Do we have 2 minutes before closing? Because I wanted to close for me with Silly
Yeah.
Shand Alfrey, Love Fun Island, on behalf
Let's,
of all
let's
of
go
us.
ahead. Let's take the 2 minutes. Let's go ahead, Jared.
Yeah,
Let's go.
And I just want, yeah.
But listen to this. Listen to this.
Yep.
The Pan Man poem. The Pan poem is
Yeah.
about fading traditions.
Yes,
You
it
know,
is. It is.
and the whole we're talking. The man poem is about maleness and manhood and
Right.
responsibility in our society.
It's also fading.
How are we gonna? I'm saying we are successful in one way or another. If I look at all you, everybody there is a star.
Mhm.
You know, how are we going to pass that on to the youth? The color, putting the icing on the cake. You know, how are we going to do that?
Pass it on
You
to
know,
you, right?
honestly, you know, Delroy, I don't know how many online groups you have with other adults, but I mean,
Many.
how are we going to pass on this legacy of
To young
using the
people.
arts, right, and preserving our traditions, which make us who we are, give our country and our people character.
Well, guys, that is a whole discussion that's going to last for
Yeah.
another whole
Yeah.
hour.
Yeah.
Carla, quickly.
So let me quickly answer that and just do a quick close down so that Jared can close. So just to turn things on to a plus and an upside, right? We recently had, I was invited as a senior advisor on WA, that's the White Equity Artists Association. WA is quite powerful, and it's over 80 artists are in members. There's over hundreds of us on our chat. And we've just had our elections. We've just coming in this week with a new board, 7 of them, and 2 senior advisors, which is myself and Carol Sorrento. So this is looking at some young people, right, that are looking at collaborations, doing murals across the island, getting jobs to do paintings, getting really active in the arts, performing, film, dubbing, video. You're looking at photographers. You're looking at the White to Cirque. These young people are doing all kinds of circus acts, and they're collaborating with one game, staying healthy, using their bodies, using their camaraderie and their collaboration. So I think that we can look at Dominica's arts are in good hands. We can know that things are happening. And I know that the board is I'm actually missing the meeting to be here, the first meeting of the new board.
Well, we have the White
of
Equity artists. We have the White Equity artists coming up soon. So you could always liaise if there are the other persons involved. I know you're heavily involved in the visual arts and the painting and so on. So let's leave it for you. With the Love for the Island.
In response to the opening poem by the man I call Sir Arundel Thomas, in memory of Alwyn Booley, Ralph Kazimi, those that have come before us, Mr. Levy, those of us present and those that's to come, what we all have in common, what all binds us together, is that love for an island. And Phyllis Shand Alfrey, a woman, as Rasmus say, was the owner of the Star. She was also a senator of the West Indian Federation and founding member of the Labour Party, taught us to love our island above any politics or anything else. Love for an island is the sternest passion, pulsing beyond the blood through roots and loam. It overflows the boundary of bedrooms and courses past the fragile walls of home. Those nourished on the sap and the milk of beauty, born in its land site, tremble like a tree at the first footfall of the dread usurper, a carpet-bagging mediocrity. Theirs is no mild attachment, but rapacious craving for a possession rude and whole. Lovers of islands drive their stake, prospecting to run the flag of ego up the pole. Sink on the tented ground, hot on the azure, plunge in the heat of earth and smell the stars of the incredible veils. At night, triumphant, they lift their eyes to Venus and to Mars. Their passion drives them to perpetuation. They dig, they plant, they build, and they aspire to the eternal landmark. When they die, the forest covers up their set desire. Salesmen and termites occupy their dwellings. Their legendary politics decay, yet they achieve an ultimate memorial. They blend their flesh with the beloved clay.
Okay, wonderful. We're gonna blame, and if we go over time, we're gonna blame the breaking news as we end. The breaking news, guys, the Matt and Kalai. But guys, it was really wonderful to have you all guys as part of what's happening here on Earth. And feel free any developments that happen, any writings that you have, you could always share it, just like Arundel send it to me. And we end the program by a little insert. We're giving a little plug to the Junior Youth Monarch. The Youth Monarch is going to happen on this week, Friday, and we have one of the leaders, Mr. Sherwin, is going to talk to us about it very briefly as we end up the program. I'm happy it's a recorded program because we'll be interrupting somebody, but he's here and we cannot really leave him out because we want to support the young people. So it's over to you.
Good night, everybody. My name is Leo Sherwin Dominic. I'm the marketing director for the Rio Club of Dominica. You know that the Rio Club of Dominica is hosting our second annual Junior Calypso Bouillon Monarch, which is scheduled for Friday, 26th of January, 2024 at the Carnival City at 5 p.m. This year we have 8 students for Calypso and 8 for Calypso and 5 for Bouillon this year. And they are, for Calypso, we have Camille Rose Esprit of the Pioneer Preparatory School. Her stage name is Rising Rose. And we have Joshua Bernadette of the St. Mary's Academy. His stage name is Bernabred. At number 3, we have Kaylan Matthew of the St. Mary's Academy. His stage name is Kinke. At number 4, we have Nia Massicott from the Portsmouth Secondary School. Her stage name is Nifty Knee. At number 5, we have Tikwani Kowan Joseph from the St. Mary's Primary, and his stage name is Prince Wani. At number 6, we have Ojaro Philbert of the Social Center FOTA program, and his stage name is Mighty Kai. At number 7, we have Karishma Piper of the Convent High School. Her stage name is a Piper Tune. At number 8, we have our reigning monarch, which is Thais Faustin of the St. Mary's Academy. His stage name is Mighty T. For the Booyah segment, we have Sage Jordan Campbell of the St. Mary's Primary, and his stage name is Sergio. At number 2, we have Josiah Fagan, who is our reigning Booyah monarch, who will be representing the Gudu Secondary School. His stage name is DJ Sire. At number 3, we have Aiden Johnson of the St. Mary's Primary, and his stage name is Hitmaker. At number 4, we have Chavez Seaman of the Portsmouth Secondary School, and his stage name is Moxie Shervy. At number 5, we have DeAndre Daru from the Pearchild Secondary School, and his stage name is Dre.
Okay, sure. We only have time for the date, the time, and how much to come in.
Okay. So the price at the gate is $15 for students and $25 for adults. And tickets can be sold at the stadium forecourt at the ticket booth. And so far, we like to thank our sponsors who came on board and sponsors for this event.
Did you see the time?
The show time is at 5 p.m. on Friday.
Okay, all right. Okay, so guys, that's where we put a wrap. Thank you guys for already joining us. And we're a little bit over time. It was really nice, guys. It was really nice. We'll touch base again. Rasmus, it was nice seeing you. Catherine Dorset, Carla, everybody.
Thank you.
There, Gerald. Yeah, man. It was nice to have the guild. I felt like I'm in the guild again, you know? It was really nice. It felt good. It felt good. Yes.
Yes, it
So
was
guys,
wonderful.
later.
Wonderful.
All right. And new listeners, next week, join us next week for same time, same place on Earth from 6 to 8 o'clock.
Bye-bye, Miss Catherine.
Bye.